You are now entering Odyssey Station. Please remain seated until docking is complete. Odyssey, dare to wonder.
And welcome, Odyssey listeners, to what we're going to call episode 0, the premiere, the pilot. Insert appropriate adjective here of wonderful new podcast / radio show, Doctor Who Audiophiles.
Boy, that's a great title. All right. Yeah. We could add who's listening, but someone doesn't like apostrophes.
It's not that I don't like apostrophes. It's just that coding doesn't like apostrophes.
Yeah, that's true.
Fine.
So for those of you that are wondering at home, my name is Jarrod. Those other two voices that you are hearing are my two cohorts that are going to be here with me week after week as we go on this audible journey through time and space.
This Whovelation.
Hi, I'm Mark Baumgarten. I put the mark in Mark Who 42. You can hear my other show on this Odyssey radio thingy that you're listening to.
Yep, and the lovely Miss Danielle.
Hi. Also cohorting on the Trek 360.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You get double time with Jarrod on this, don't you? Oh, yeah.
Yep, and my name is Jarrod. On the Odyssey Network, you can also hear me on The Seventh Rule with Aaron Eisenberg and Sirach Lofton and Ryan T. Husk, and as well as me and Dannie talking all things Trek in Trek 360. This show is airing on Saturday nights. The rest of our shows will be found throughout the week if you go to Odyssey.com or go to the app. We're on demand. We're on
Odyssey1.com. Odyssey1.com.
Odyssey1.com. You go to the app. You go to iTunes. We're everywhere.
Yeah.
So
demand us.
Demand
us.
We're here now because our friends at Odyssey wanted a Doctor Who podcast. And
well, they have a Doctor Who podcast. They have a Doctor Who radio show, Mark Who 42. What do they need another one for?
Well, they've got 3 Star Trek shows, and I wasn't going to do another Star Trek show for them. So I was like, they asked me if I would do another show, if I wanted to do something Doctor Who related, because I have been watching Doctor Who forever. So I want to say I was like 3.
Forever, ever.
I've been watching it since 1978, so that ages me because I was not in my single digits at that time.
Oh, you know what? 2014.
Oh.
I know.
You're a whippersnapper.
You're a newbie.
And as Marcus pointed out, there are wonderful Doctor Who podcasts that are out there that cover a wonderful wide variety of topics. And I was very adamant that I wasn't going to do one that just covered the show. Because if you want to listen to a good podcast that covers all aspects of Doctor Who in the show, those exist. Those are out there. Go find them on iTunes. They're great. We love them.
Listen to Mark Who 42.
Listen to Mark Who 42.
I mean, we're not all Doctor Who, but we're that is, we have the word Who in our title,
Exactly.
We have 42 as well for you Hitchhikers fans.
Yep.
Oh.
Exactly. And I was sitting here wondering what would be an avenue of Doctor Who that has not been explored as much. And I personally am a massive fan of the Doctor Who audio range, both from Big Finish Productions is obviously the major one. The ones from BBC is releasing some, and back through history, BBV put out some back in the day. There was even the early ones from the 70s, the Pescatons, and you got into the 80s, there was like Slipback and all these weird ones. And I know when you get new fans, Dannie, I'm looking at you.
You are. It's creepy. I need an adult.
That want to get into the Doctor Who audios, the Big Finish stories have been going as of this summer for 20 years. And it's a little daunting and intimidating for new fans to get in on it.
Yeah.
Mark, would you agree?
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Because you have, from a vendor point of view, sold these.
Yes.
Or marketed them. How was it marketing Big Finish to the newer, I don't want to say newer fans, but like people that are new to that range?
Well,
Baby Who's.
Yeah. Well, it took, some convincing, some story plot line giving, and hopefully we'll be doing that on this, but I don't sell them anymore. But we sold a lot of box sets, the individual stories, the classic Doctors. The new Whovians didn't get it. And Danny, I hope you're going to start getting it because you're on the show. But Big Finish, I think it's a great product. You have the actual actors from the series. You have from old and new, because David Tennant does Big Finish now, and he actually started doing some of the main range classic Doctor Who Big Finish before he did the 10th Doctor. And we'll be talking about that later.
Yeah, David Tennant is doing them, and if Instagram is to be believed, Christopher Eccleston might have something coming up because he
Wow!
Did you know he took down that post? He took down that post.
The Big Finish post.
Yeah, he took down the Big Finish post and deleted a few of the comments that were made. Interesting. Because I went to it the next day, just because I had taken my phone and I snapped a picture of it on Saturday, and then on Sunday there were less comments than there were on my phone saying, and his comment was no longer there.
Listeners, if you were wondering what we're talking about, Christopher Eccleston has, as of January, started an Instagram, and last month he posted a picture of some mannequin heads, and one of the things that he said was Big Finish was being very demanding or something along that line.
I'll read it to you because I have it in front of me.
Okay.
All right. At Christopher Eccleston. Think Big Finish burnt the toast this morning. Bit needy. Must have an agenda about something. ... And that was, and it says 13 hours ago. And then 24 hours later, that quote is not there anymore.
Interesting. For those of you that don't know, Big Finish is a company that has been putting out Doctor Who audios for about 20 years.
Yeah.
They've got even a 9th Doctor range. So for him to be mentioning Big Finish specifically, it's a very interesting thing, especially because it was capitalized, like Big Finish.
Yeah. I agree, but can I say something?
Yeah.
I have been telling people this on Mark Who 42 for years now, that they have to remember that Christopher Eccleston had a problem with the BBC and not Doctor Who. He is a Doctor Who fan. He is not upset with his time. He's not upset that he was the Doctor. And I always said he is going to come to Big Finish at some point, because he loves Doctor Who. And if they ask him and he has the time, why wouldn't he do it? He loves the fans.
Yeah. Yes, Miss Dannie.
And he's my doctor.
He's your
That's
doctor.
Was he your?
What I started with, and he's my favorite.
He's your first? That is awesome.
My first doctor, and that's the reason why I started watching Doctor Who. That is the reason why I watched The Leftovers, is that I saw he was in it. And the fact that I knew he was in Thor #2, and I saw that as well. So, and I attempted to watch some Showtime show he was in, but I couldn't do it.
The Leftovers?
No, that was HBO.
That was HBO.
No,
right.
It's another show, but I don't think it went very far. And I saw that it was only a season, and I was like, okay, I'm not that.
Did you see 28 Days Later?
A long time ago, but I don't remember it, to be honest.
Nice zombie film. That wasn't a zombie film.
So let's ask around. Since we're going to be going into this, Mark, what is your Doctor Who history? When did you start? When did you become a fan? Who's your doctor?
Okay. Well, like I said, I started back in 1978. When local PBS channel first started showing Tom Baker. I caught it from the 9th episode in Santaran Experiment, episode 2, and I was intrigued, and I definitely got it, thought, oh, this is a good show. I'm glad my friend told me to watch this. And then the next episode is Genesis of the Daleks, episode 1, and I'm like, what the? I was hooked. Doctor Who has been in my life since 1978. I watched the episodes over and over and over again. When it went off the air in I even went on the first Doctor Who sci-fi sea cruise that Dan Harris ran with Sylvester McCoy, John Nathan Turner, Gary Downey, and Nicholas Courtney. And I got to, I was helping Dan do the video log that we did for that. It was a real great adventure. I had helped at all the Omnicons since I'd say I started helping in 82, even though I started going in 80. And I was a staff member by the end of it, near the end of the 80s. When the show ended in 89, that was kind of a bummer. But then in 1991, the books started coming out. The New Adventures and Time Worm and the 4-book series. And I read those and I loved them. And I started buying every single Virgin book, as they were from the Virgin Books imprint. I got everything there. And then when they lost the license, well, hey, there's a TV movie. 1996 came around, and we had The Enemy Within. That's the insider's name to the TV movie with Paul McGann, and that. I love that movie. I didn't care that, he's half human. He kisses someone. We have work. He does more than kiss now. I mean, it's much. Yeah.
That, Danny, you don't understand. That was a scandal.
Yeah.
That was
nobody.
The fact that he kissed Grace. Oh my God! You would have thought he pulled out a gun.
Twice. He kissed her twice.
He had never. No, never.
No.
Oh, wow.
And,
even Joe Grant, who he loved like a niece. Yeah.
It's really funny you hit on something right there, Mark. And I just want to say, looking back at all, I think the most important person in all of Doctor Who history is the person in the Virgin / Pocket Books office. Because, Danny, back then, you got to think there was no VHS, there was no Blu-ray that night. They novelized all the episodes.
Yeah.
So those novels sold really good because there was no VHS. You couldn't get it any other time. If you missed an episode, you read it.
That was the target line.
The target lines. In some cases, you actually got the book before you saw the episode.
Well, in America, that was very much the case.
Yeah, and that line for Target. I said Pocket. I've been on a Star Trek kick. I'm sorry.
I was going to say Pocket. Well, didn't they do an American release of 10 books? Wasn't that Pocket?
Yep. No, Timescape.
Oh, it was Timescape.
No. Yeah, Timescape, which is an imprint of Pocket. Yeah.
Okay.
But we're sitting here, and they were running out. They novelized everything they could, and this line was coming to an end. And somebody in the office had the brilliant idea of, we've been novelizing episodes this entire time. Let's just start writing original stuff and continue the story. And I honestly believe, had that not happened, we would not see Doctor Who as it is today.
I agree.
I could totally understand that.
Because those books were adults. They were for adults. They were for the people who grew up with Doctor Who are now adults. I remember, when I sold the books, selling Transit, I which is one of the stories that Ben Aronovich wrote, one of the first Benny stories, the second Benny story, actually. Ben Aronovich wrote Remembrance of the Daleks, for anyone who cares, and Battlefield. Transit, it had the F word so many times. I put strong language, mature. I wouldn't sell it to a kid. I would not sell Transit to a kid.
Even if you go back into the Time Worms, you get into Time Worm and Ace.
Oh, Ace had sex.
Yeah.
Ace had sex with
Creed.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was adults.
They were spicy Who.
No, Danny, I remember the line. It was something along the lines of how his blonde hair shone like neon in the dark. As,
Oh.
yeah, it was like,
Should I have poured myself a glass of wine?
You should
while
have
you
some
read the-
Chardonnay
Yeah,
while
but
we're
this
talking
gives-
about
but
this.
this gives-
Chardonnay.
but
Girls.
yeah, but moving on. You had the books that had a thing and were very, very popular, and you reached a point where it's really, Mark. I'm sorry to jump on this, but this is really good to get to where the audios come from for people
Okay.
that are listening and wondering why we're talking about books in the history.
Because books are awesome, people.
Well,
Reading is fundamental.
Thank you.
Virgin did the what they call the New Adventures. The Seventh Doctor was the current Doctor at that point, and they featured him. And then they did a line of past Doctor stories.
Yeah.
And then they even got to a point after like book 50, where book 50 was an event, and yeah,
Happy endings.
Yep,
A great title, isn't it?
I feel like I need my Chardonnay again.
Yeah. The BBC started watching this and said they're making money off of these little Doctor Who novel things. We need some money. Yeah, you can't have this title. You can't have this license anymore. We're going to do these Doctor Who books in-house. And by that time, McGann had come around.
Mm-hmm.
And they treated... Virgin was like, well, we've got this awesome New Adventures line. We don't want to lose it. And their reasoning, which I guess is reasoning, I don't know, was that the Doctor had companions that came and went. Why doesn't the Doctor just leave and we have the companion carry on? And so you had a short line with just the companion with Bernice Summerfield.
Yeah.
Which is great. There's one of my favorite Doctor Who universe stories of all time is in that little chunk right there.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is. It's called Walking to Babylon by Kate.
That's a great story.
But so you had BBC. The BBC started theirs, and the BBC really toned it down. There wasn't much by means of sex.
No.
Or Joe Grant getting
Chardonnay back in the fridge.
Or Dodo Chaplet dying from syphilis or whatever.
Yeah, they didn't have that.
None of that was going on.
But some of the Eater of Wasps was a very violent story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that was BBC.
Yeah,
they did some they took the sex away, but they added violence, and I always thought that in England it was the other way around, that they discouraged violence and they encouraged nudity and sex. So I'm not really sure where the BBC was taking that.
Yeah, but as we were saying, Big Finish, 20 years ago, so that would have been like 1999. They started putting out audio stuff.
Yeah,
and they took that companion, Bernice Summerfield, and some of those novels that they did with her by herself were some of their first releases. Their very first release was "Oh No, It Isn't."
It isn't.
Yep.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, no, it isn't.
And
pantomime.
People listening at home, and Danny, it's really, we're talking about all this because people need to understand at this time when they were starting to work on these audios, that because the first audio we're going to record for the show is one of the earlier ones. The 2005 Christopher Eccleston series, nobody thought it was coming.
No.
I mean, and in many cases, when they announced that they were doing these audio stories with the Doctor and his companions and all that, that was as close to official Doctor Who as we were ever going to get. That was as good as it got,
Aww.
And considering it was for a show that had been dead for 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
No, it's not.
And those early audios got away with a lot more than what the audios can get away with today because Doctor Who wasn't on the screen.
Right. That's true.
Now I'm like, I'm ready. I'm excited.
You can hear they're cussing up, and there's cussing, there's drugs, there's storms, there's sex.
They were bleepity bleep bleeping.
But there's really good ones too.
Yeah.
Let me get the Chardonnay again.
Mm-hmm.
It has some Chardonnay. So, well, let me interrupt for a second because we were into my. Weren't we talking about me? We were talking about me, not Big Finish.
You.
So I read the books and then Big Finish came out and I started with the first Big Finish. Oh no, it isn't, with Bernice Summerfield. And then when they did Sirens of Time, when they brought Doctor Who, it wasn't my favorite story, but the fact that they were doing new Doctor Who, that if you close your eyes, you're watching TV with your eyes closed, because they have special effects and it's the real actors and the stories. They were 25 minutes and they had the theme music, the wrong theme music for a lot of them at the beginning. Well, no, because they were kind of only using the Tom Baker music at one point for every Doctor. But I like the Big Finish, and I have a gigantic Big Finish collection. I've listened to I've listened to the entire main range up to date. I've listened to most of the box set, Stories to War Doctor, and everything. So, and these are things that you'll learn about in the future, folks. But then 2003 comes and they announce, Russell T. Davies is bringing back Doctor Who. And we're like, I don't know. Is he really going to bring it? I mean, Queer as Folk was good. Second Coming, good. Time was good. Second Coming came out. I think that's what did it. I think Second Coming made the BBC go, all right, you can do Doctor Who. I think
that was a weird day, the day that announcement came. I remember it vividly.
Okay, well, go for it.
There had been rumblings that something was coming.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what it was. And then all of a sudden there was a little blurb that Doctor Who and we were like, wait, what? And then by the next day it had exploded.
Yeah. So. It was nice that the internet was actually around back then, because it wasn't around when we even started Doctor Who. So Eccleston came, 2005, Eccleston came on, and though I'm really having a memory thing, I am sure that in America, Sci-Fi Channel did not start airing it until 2006.
Correct. They did
Correct.
not. They did not. Because then they tried to rebrand it. They gave it a different logo with a silhouette with Chris in the silhouette, and it was the whole. Yeah, it took. Okay. Yeah, they were a year or two behind.
But March 26 in 2005, Easter Saturday, it premiered in England. And I was lucky by nefarious means, don't anyone hold it against me, I got to watch the Christopher Eccleston a week after they were shown in England. And I got to tell you, it was the best. I was so happy Doctor Who was back. I'm going, this is going to last a long time. And but the problem was right after it premiered, the news leaked that Eccleston was leaving.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was episode 1, Rose is over. Oh, by the way, we're going. I'm leaving. Bye, everyone. And the week before Doctor Who started, they had a documentary about the new series, and it was narrated by David Tennant. And so when David Tennant was announced as the new Doctor, I'm like, they had this planned the whole time. Yep. So let me just cut this short. My Doctor is the first Doctor. It would be the fourth Doctor because he was the first one I saw. So Tom Baker is my Doctor. However, if you go to, and then Sylvester McCoy became my Doctor for a while. I still love Sylvester. We've had some good times together, he and I, on the cruise and at conventions. But then if you're talking new series, David Tennant was my favorite Doctor in new series until Capaldi. Peter Capaldi, a classic Doctor stuck in the new series. I loved it. I may not have loved the stories they told. I may have had some problems with Mr. Moffat, but Capaldi's acting chops made him my favorite of the new series. And that's the story. Oh, and I've done Mark Who 42 since 2012. And there you go. That's the story of Mark.
I have to say, I have to agree with Danny on this one, because if I sit here and think about who from the new series, do I want to come save me? I want Eccleston to come save me.
Number 9.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't mind being saved by number 9.
However, at the same time, I would also really like to be saved by number 10.
David Tennant, yeah, definitely.
I love David Tennant.
But if it wasn't for Eccleston, we wouldn't have the show. If he wasn't the one that they hired to go first, it would not have been a good show. They brought back the show with an actor of quality.
Right.
And he had a history of famous performances before that, which is kind of unlike classic Doctor Who, where you usually found someone who was kind of unknown or only a little known. But when they brought Eccleston in, he blew the whole thing open. And thank you, Chris.
He made me watch it.
So, Mark, that's Mark, and we are going to take a quick break, and then we will be right back, and me and Danny will tell you our inputs right here on Doctor Who Audiophiles.
Odysy, Dare to Wonder.
And welcome back to Doctor Who Audiophiles. Hi, Jarrod. That's Mark. Danny's still here. Now, Mark, we've heard your Doctor Who fandom story. Danny.
Yeah, it was a long one, wasn't it? It was
Danny.
kind of long.
I know. I'm like, how do I compete with this?
Well, now's your
I'm
chance.
gonna go curl into a ball. I don't know enough.
No. You'll be fine. You'll be
I
fine,
know.
Danny.
That's why you guys keep me around. It's fine. It's fine. So mine started in 2014 after I got married and we were on our honeymoon. When we came back home, I still had 3 days off from work, and you start putting stuff together and you're like, oh, okay, let's do this. I'm going to turn on, I think it was Netflix. And I went, okay. And it knows that I love Star Trek, and it suggested Doctor Who to me, which I had somebody at work, he had said to me, you'd love Doctor Who. You love Star Trek, you love sci-fi. I love a bunch of different sci-fi things. Mm-hmm. But he goes, especially everyone knowing that every day I used to carry a Star Trek lunchbox to work. Because guess what? Nerd don't care.
Don't care.
Nerd don't care. That's right. Sassy, sexy, and nerdy. Do it. So I went, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And see, what I attempted to do was to watch the first episode with the first Doctor. And he said, he goes, Danielle, you should just start with the new one, and then you'll be fine. And I went, oh, it's fine. I love stuff from the beginning. I attempted. I don't think I got through the entire episode, and I went, okay, whoa. And it wasn't because it was in black and white. It was because this curmudgeon old man was kind of out of, and I went, okay, I don't understand what's going on. Okay, you know what? Time out. Let's start at 9. He told me to start at 9. I didn't know what this is. And oh my gosh, I binge watched the entire series in a day and a half.
It's really funny.
that first season.
Danny, when they brought the show back, it took them a year or two for the production team to know what to do with the classic series. Mm-hmm. For like a year, they kind of, I don't want to say pretended that it didn't exist, but they kept it separate because they wanted that to be a jumping on thing for people. Because there's no way to alienate your audience than to say, hey, you like this story? Here's 30 years of backstory. Go.
I know. And I'm like, well, in being a Trek fan, I started with, I always say really kind of Next Generation, but I watched all the movies, and the movies at least are a little bit closer. But, imagine going from like that to when the first time I ever saw classic Trek, I was like, now I'm like, because I'm such a Trek fan that I'm like, this is great. So I've always wanted to go back and watch the other half of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely started then. And of course, number 9, he is my doctor. And by the way, I love Capaldi. I think Capaldi got a raw shot. I think he could have been the Doctor for a little longer.
Yeah.
Not to say I love Jodie too. I'm on the Jodie.
Jodie's great.
Her.
Jodie's great. I'm having a problem with the writing.
And I was like, see, and I was like, I understand some of those. But I'm like, if you had to do, marry, date, throw away, then it would be.
You're saying it the clean way. I like that.
Yes, I am. So if I had to marry one, it's going to be 10 because he'd be fun.
Right.
Tenet. Definitely run away with just for fun affair. Number 9 because he's crazy. And Axe would be number 11.
Really?
That's actually
I can't
very.
stand Matt Smith. I'm in the weird. I know. I can't stand.
It's really funny. We have a good friend that we need to get. I have a good friend we need to get on the show whose name is Simon Gurrier. He is one of the Doctor Who writers. He explained the first Doctor era. Mark, I'm not sure if you've done this or not. He was explaining the first Doctor era to somebody that was a new fan. And he said the way you need to go into the Hartnell era is to watch like the first half of it as Barbara and Ian teaching the Doctor how to be the Doctor.
Yes.
Because as Danny just said, in those early episodes, he's a little bastard.
Well, he's an anti-hero. He wasn't there to save the day. He was, he in the Dalek story, he wasn't really there to stop the Daleks. He had destroyed a fluid link and had to replace it. I mean,
he was
understanding.
It was his interest. Oh, this is interesting. I have to go and investigate. But he was, and then he teaches some pacifists that they have to fight.
Yeah.
And not be pacifistic. It's totally a different character than the Doctor.
And that's the thing that's interesting about Doctor Who as a whole is I don't want to say Doctor's era because each Doctor, but even 3 to 5 years, it's a different show entirely. And that's what some of the, I don't want to knock the new series fans, but they haven't really experienced it, is that you do get different eras. And just because I like certain eras of the show more than others doesn't mean that I dislike the show as a whole.
Right.
And that's the thing that Big Finish through the audios gives us the ability to, is to dip back into those different eras.
Yeah.
And see the way things were. Listening to a 6th Doctor Bonnie Langford story, as we're going to be doing for our first one, a 6th Doctor Melanie story, that's going to listen different than a David Tennant story.
Of course.
Than a John Pertwee story.
So let me stop for a second. Don't be scared, folks. We just said the first story we're going to talk about next time is a Bonnie Langford story. Yep. Okay.
Which I'm learning about right now because
a lot of people did not like Mel.
Well, I'll call us. One of the things I don't want to do on the show is be afraid to call a spade a spade.
Okay.
Back during that time frame, the early audios, Colin Baker was not that popular of a Doctor.
Right.
I'm not saying anything ill against the man. It's just the truth. If you go back and look at Doctor Who magazine, the popularity of him, he's down there with Hartnell and Troughton, the people that they hadn't seen in 5 years.
Yeah.
Then Big Finish releases, and they treat his Doctor right, and they actually give him awesome scripts, and he was number 1 the next year.
Yeah.
He shot he shot to the top. And I picked this adventure for us to start with specifically because it's a Doctor that got a bum rap, a companion that was kind of blah, and it's an amazing story that I loved.
Yeah.
I personally loved this story, and it really showed me, okay, this is what Doctor Who can be on a different medium.
No, I agree. And, the 6th Doctor, when he was on TV, there were problems with the show. The fans were, complaining. DWB, Doctor Who Bulletin, was writing things anti-John Nathan Turner. And so Colin Baker was kind of overshadowed with all this garbage. And the writers, some of the writers weren't that good. Bad writing is always a problem. And, so the 6th Doctor had a bum rap. He didn't get to do what he wanted. And the BBC kind of fired him. The Doctor should only be there for 3 years, let alone that he only had 2 seasons. The Doctor should only be there 3 years. That's a kind of thing that everyone does. So we're going to do that.
And Danny, we'll get into all this later.
Yeah, Danny, don't worry about it now.
So,
Don't worry about this now.
So,
I'm soaking it in.
But
you
in the audios, Colin Baker shines. And Bonnie Langford shines. I love Melanie in the audios. I didn't hate her in the TV show, but in the TV show, they hired her because she could scream the sting into the episode endings. Jarrod, that's the joke that they used to tell, right?
right. So, Danny, I'm gonna ask as we move forward, as someone who is completely new to the classic series and completely new to Doctor Who on audio, what trepidations do you have right now as we begin this journey of going back and re-listening? And because one of the things we want to do with this show is to make it's almost like a Doctor Who Audio 101. You know, each week we're going to have where listeners can send us questions, comments, and then we'll cover an audio a week. And we want to make sure that the audios that we are covering, especially for these first couple weeks and months, are ones that you don't really need you don't have to have listened to anything before to listen to this.
I would say what would be, I guess, helpful to someone like myself is knowing that you guys are super knowledgeable about Doctor Who, is that, you know, giving like a little bit of the backstory myself and the listeners beforehand, and then when we go in, it gives us more context.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that we need to know every single thing. Like the doctor beforehand ate a egg on toast with beans on the side before he decided
No, the beans are on the toast. The beans.
I know the beans, and I knew that after I said it, but it was just too late, and I had to trust in myself.
Okay, I'm going to use an example.
Oh, beans on toast. Yeah.
I'm going to use an example from an audio I listened to last night, and Danny, a lot of the words that are coming out of my mouth right now are not going to make sense.
Okay, let's go.
You've got a Big Finish release where the villain has decided to kidnap the Doctor's companions.
Okay.
But there's one companion that he keeps taking her out of this cell and putting her over here because the villain is trying to keep all the second Doctor's companions together and all the third together and trying to get the set. He takes one and he takes her out of here and puts her over here and he keeps moving her back and forth because he doesn't know where to place her.
Okay. Is this Clara? I'm kidding.
No. No, it's not Clara.
But place her out the lock.
But it's not explained to the listener, why is he moving this girl back and forth? Wait, where
she was a companion to multiple doctors?
Yes.
There you go.
That's what I said. Is this person Clara?
Right, but you know what I'm saying?
They did that in the beginning.
But they don't explain things like that. Wait, why is this person didn't this person die?
Rose.
Like, why is this, you know, and it's just stuff like that bothers me if you were a new listener being dumped in and listening to this for the first time.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that,
at least for me, I mean, with the newer, since I've only seen the newer ones, I mean, pretty much all of them have shared a companion for the most part. Minus like Jodie has her own, but
Matt had her. There's a clean break at Matt.
Well, he had Clara, and so did Capaldi.
Yeah,
but I'm talking
like Karen Gillian, you know, the two of them because they were gone. And then, I mean, it depends on if you think of like River. She's like all over the place.
And and River's in Big Finish as well.
Yeah,
that's something fun. That's something fun that they've done with her. Is they've really, because she goes back and forth throughout the Doctor's life, she goes all the way back and all the way forward.
Yeah, so the fourth Doctor actually knows he's married. Giving spoilers, I better stop.
Oh. I love River Song. I know that it's a very contentious thing with certain fans, but I love her. I think she's
River
fantastic.
Song is a good character.
I love Alex
Kingston.
Yes, Kingston. She's gorgeous, absolutely fantastic, and I'd love to meet her.
Just to give
Bernice Summerfield is also an archeologist,
and I'm gonna watch the new
original
show that she's
archaeologist.
on too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
is that on BBC America? It just started, I think.
BBC America. Yeah,
BBC America,
I just saw my DVR, so thanks to her. Now I have to start watching anything New Amsterdam on NBC because Dr. Martha Jones is in
Yep,
it.
Freema's in it.
Oh, wow.
Martha Jones is in it. So I know. See, that's what I mean. Like, thanks
I liked
to
Forever
Doctor
with
Who.
Vern Gorman.
And
Yeah. Thanks to Doctor Who, if I see an actor from it, then I have to watch whatever show this is.
Okay.
I just have to. So
to
I'm like,
give our listeners, I guess, to fill it round, my Doctor Who experience, I remember very vividly. I was sitting in South Alabama at home on a Saturday night, flipping through the channels, click, click, click. There's nothing on TV. Oh, look, there's a robot. Let's watch this show about the robot. Robot was done. Seven nights later, click, click, click. Oh, look, it's the people that with the robot last week. What are they doing this week? I have since learned that my very first episode of Doctor Who was The Visitation. And since during the John Nathan Turner era, the Doctor and companions never changed clothes because they were some stinky bitches, I guess.
I know. What's up with that? How do they not change
I mean,
clothes?
but that's
You lost me now, man. I'm totally gone.
I'm sorry. They didn't change clothes. But
They were trying to sell merchandise. They wanted the Doctor and his companions to have costumes so you could dress up as your characters for Halloween.
They didn't change clothes at all.
No.
And I'm like, they had. I love the Peter Davison era, especially the Tegan, Adric, Nyssa, that whole crew.
Oh, yeah.
I love that era of the show. But
it's a good era.
They had bedrooms, and if they had bedrooms, there was a bathroom somewhere. They need to go bathe. I mean,
Nyssa had drawers. There were drawers in Nyssa's room, so she could have changed her clothes from that prissy little royal outfit. I mean, really.
So
and Adric walking around in his pajamas for a season. What the heck?
So I watched I watched all the classic series, and like Mark, I have read every Doctor Who novel that has ever been published. It just keeps going. I love the audios. The audios was able to take me back to these eras that I loved, as well as show me stuff new, because when the Paul McGann series started, that was new Doctor Who, and that was a great trip for us to be on with the Eighth Doctor and Charlie. I look forward to revisiting it again. I've done lots of stuff with Big Finish. If you get a copy of the Bernice Summerfield Inside Story, I proofread that with Simon.
Ooh. I didn't know that, actually, Jarrod.
I have read and listened to a lot of that. I ran a successful, unsuccessful Doctor Who convention in Orlando.
Oh, okay. Don't say unsuccessful. It was successful until it became out of your purview. Right. It wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
Hurricane Who was a fun convention in Orlando. I enjoyed being there each year selling stuff.
Through that, I've had numerous encounters with people. I've talked to people. I know lots of backstage stuff at Big Finish. Big Finish is well aware that we are doing this show, and we are going to have some people from them joining us as we move forward.
Cool.
So which brings us to the last, I guess, 10 to 15 minutes of our show. Danny, do you have any questions? Mark, do you have any questions before I unveil the elephant in the room we've been talking about for the last hour?
Oh my, we have an elephant?
Mm-hmm.
Don't say it's Dumbo, because I'm not going to be a part of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go see Dumbo. What's the point? The cartoon back in the day was all right. This thing...
I refuse. I don't like I'm not a big fan of the cartoon. Sorry.
Okay. Well, the first audio adventure that we are going to cover starting next week's, or when I say next week, it's actually 2 weeks. When this show is airing, the first time the show is dropping is on April 13th. Our first real episode of Doctor Who Audiophiles will be on the 27th. So 2 weeks from now. Our very first Big Finish audio. Danny, is this your very first Big Finish audio?
It is my first.
Okay.
Everyone always remembers that.
Oh, we have to have some flavored ice cream. Maybe cherry fudge ripple? I don't know.
I see what you did there.
Our very first Doctor Who audio that we're going to cover is going to be a little story from 2001. Yeah.
2001.
Written by Gareth Roberts and Clayton Hickman. It is featuring Bonnie Langford is Mel, Colin Baker is the Sixth Doctor, and it is a little adventure called The One Doctor. And here we're going to listen to the trailer right now.
Doctor Who, The One Doctor.
Citizens of Generios, you will listen.
These readings? Well, the TARDIS is way off course.
Way, way off course. We've drifted millennia into the far future.
I have been sent to collect tribute.
So, where exactly are we?
The vulgar end of time.
I must have the 3 greatest treasures of the Generios system, or I will destroy you all.
What's happened? We've only just arrived. We picked up a distress call.
Oh, sorry, wasted journey. Well, we've been saved. The Skeloids are vanquished.
So what happened to these Skeloids?
The doctor sorted them out for us, didn't he?
Did you say the doctor?
Doctor, you've done so much for us. How can we ever repay you?
I don't expect repayment. The work I do is reward in itself. Anyway, Sally Ann and I really must get back to the Stardust.
Looks like you've already saved the day then. Beaten yourself to it.
I somehow doubt it. I've never been to Generios before.
You don't reckon they've rumbled us? We ought to get out of here.
And lose our chance of 100 million credits.
You're really rattled, aren't you?
Yes. Because if I didn't save this planet from the evil Skeloids, who is the doctor that did?
Bring me the tribute. The tribute, I say.
What a plank.
And that is what we are starting this journey with.
Oh, I love this story. This is a great story.
Danny, I'm not going to lie. There are elements of the new series, especially from the wonderful Ninth Doctor era, that you're going to find in this story as you listen to it.
Awesome sauce.
And you're going to sit there and go, oh, that's kind of familiar. There's lots of elements to this story that appear in the new series. When I say the new series, I'm talking about the 2005 new incarnation of Doctor Who.
Of course.
You're really going to appreciate it, but it's a story that's very much set in the past, in the Sixth Doctor's era. You can tell that they are. I'll leave some of this for when we come back and listen to it.
Yes, we will.
All right.
So,
what? Spoil it for me. Let me slip it down. Unzip a little.
Oh, we're gonna make your life hell, Jarrod. We're totally
we are.
Gonna mess you up.
I know. See, now there's someone else to mess with you. Can't do this on Trek 360 by myself.
Hey, I'm pretty well armed. You forget I have Sirach and Aaron to deal with.
No Gowron eyes.
No Gowron eyes.
Gowron eyes.
Oh no! Maybe I'm going to be in trouble.
I know.
So, what are you looking for, Danny, as the person who is starting on this Doctor Who audio journey? What are you looking out of it to get out of it?
To learn more and understand more of the especially since we're doing a previous Doctor, so at least to know more of his past, because I only really know of his past till the Ninth Doctor, because I haven't had a chance to once again return back to it once it was taken off of Netflix. And only recently you can kind of see some on BBC, but it's under lock and key.
You can get it on BritBox. I pay like $6.95 a month, and I get access to BBC and ITV shows here in America.
Ooh.
And they have most of what's available in classic Doctor Who there.
Because I know that some of them are they were a little insensitive, so they took those away.
Yeah, well, most everything is on BritBox, and they've got EastEnders, and they've got The Last Detective.
I love EastEnders.
If it's not on BritBox, it's in my DVD case behind me.
Yeah,
it's like Jarrod.
Me too. I got the reconstructions. I've got the reconstructions.
Prime only has the new ones because I wanted to see the Doctor Who movie that before number 9.
Yeah, right. The TV movie.
There's I always wondered, did he regenerate in that movie, Eccleston? No, Eccleston. He just showed up one day.
Right. Right. And that would have required backstory or whatever. And as you'll see, there's lots of things there for us to discuss.
Yeah.
And people talk about this whole Eccleston thing, one of the things I think Russell said is that in order for an audience to understand regeneration, how do I want to begin this? If you want to alienate your audience, kill your main character 5 minutes into the show, which is what regeneration.
And that's what the TV movie did.
Yeah,
kind of. They gave him 20 minutes. They gave
Right.
him a little longer.
Oh, they killed. Oh, like was it?
Yeah, Sylvester McCoy is in the TV movie at the
For
beginning.
like 20 minutes.
For 20 minutes, he
Oh,
gets regenerated into Paul McGann, and then you have another. It's a 90-minute movie because it fits in the 2-hour time slot. So you have an hour and 10 minutes with Paul McGann, most of which he's not playing the character. He's playing someone in a regeneration crisis, and so you don't see how he would have played it if it went to series.
Right.
So it's a good movie, but at the same time, it's just a regeneration story, and those aren't always the best.
Whereas the Eccleston regeneration, it hurt because that was a doctor that you knew, you fell in love with him,
No.
and then he left.
Yeah.
And
nobody knew who Sylvester McCoy was if they hadn't watched the classic series, and if they had, it was 12 years previous. So I mean,
and that was the whole thing, is they marketed that movie terribly. They marketed it as like an action adventure, not like
it was on Fox.
Yeah,
it was on Fox, and it was on opposite the episode of Roseanne where Dan has a heart attack. So that got #1 in the ratings, and Doctor Who suffered from that. Well,
I saw that episode.
Well, see that then you didn't watch Doctor Who. Then you didn't watch Doctor Who.
That's
But yeah, we are going to go through. We're not going to spend all of our time in classic series world in terms of audios. I want to cover, because Big Finish has a lot of range. They do Torchwood, there's Sarah Jane Adventures audios, there's Class audio. Yeah, we're going to go through and listen to some of the Torchwood stuff. There, some of the stuff earlier on. There's a 2-hander with Gareth David Lloyd.
My favorite.
That was one of the funniest things you'll hear ever.
Or Yanto. I love Yanto.
You will love Yanto in this story that we're going to talk about.
I was in love with Yanto until and I watched Torchwood,
and they also have different styles. They also have different styles of stories.
Yeah,
where they're not all full cast. Some of them are one-act plays or one-person, one-handers. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's a lot to learn. Listeners, feel free to write us. If you go on Twitter, on the wonderful Twitter, we have the handle Doctor Who Audio.
Ooh, that's hard to remember. Can you help me with that?
At Doctor Who Audio.
It's still too complicated. You got to explain that to me. What do you mean?
At Doctor Who Audio on the Twitter.
On the Twitter. Yeah, that's what we call it. The
on
Twitter.
The Twitter box?
Yep. Tell us what you thought about the audios, what you thought about the one we had coming up, the one Doctor. If you have questions for us about the audios, we will answer them as quickly as we can.
If you want to know more about how awesome we are, you can do that too.
You can totally do that.
If you want Danny's recipe for mimosas, that'll work.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to reach me... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yes, I will tell you which is the best thing to drink when you read your book. Or listen to your book.
Listen to your audio, yeah.
Yep.
And if you want to just reach out to me, you can reach out to me on the Twitter at Marku42.
Yep. On the Twitter.
On the Twitter.
We're also on the Facebook. Doctor Who Audiophiles has a Facebook page on the Facebook.
We got Marku42. I'm going to plug too. Why not? Marku42. Yeah. We have over 5,300 list followers. So you just hit like.
And we're on the Odysee as well. If where you're listening to this right now, unless you're listening to it in the future from iTunes, then hi, future people. I hope
people in the future. Listen to me very carefully because I've got something to tell you that I'm not going to do right.
So, all right. Well, that's about all the time we have.
What?
That can't be all the time we have.
That is about all the time we have.
Wait, someone get in the blue box. We can get more time.
I got a blue box over here. Come on, sneak into my TARDIS. We'll go. We're gonna fast forward to 2 weeks from now. So
all
we
right,
did one Doctor. Let's get in our TARDIS and dematerialize to 2 weeks from now.
And for myself, Jarrod, and Danny, And Mark.
Hey.
Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time on Doctor Who Audiophiles.
Thank you.